He was known in the neighborhood as the man who never said no. If someone needed money, he reached into his pocket. If someone needed time, he gave hours without looking at the clock. If someone needed support, he stood beside them even when it meant standing alone. His name was Daniel, and people often said he had a heart too big for this world. At first, those words felt like praise. Later, they felt like a warning he ignored. Daniel grew up believing that helping others was the highest purpose of life. His father used to say, if you have more than you need, it belongs to someone who has less. Those words shaped him. When he started working at a small company, earning just enough to survive, he still shared what little he had. He skipped meals to lend money to friends. He walked long distances so others could use his bus fare. Every act of kindness gave him a quiet sense of pride, a feeling that he mattered. People noticed. Calls came late at night. Messages arrived early in the morning. Daniel, can you help me just this once? Became a sentence he heard every day. And every time, he said yes. He believed that one day, when he needed help, the same hands would reach back to him. But slowly, something changed inside him. His savings disappeared. His dreams were postponed. He wanted to start a small business, but the money was always, temporarily borrowed, by someone in trouble. He wanted to study further, but he was too busy fixing other people's problems. When he looked in the mirror, he saw tired eyes and a smile that felt forced. One evening, after a long day at work, Daniel received a call from a close friend, Mark. Mark sounded desperate. He needed a large amount of money urgently or he would lose his apartment. Daniel hesitated for the first time in his life. That money was meant for his own rent, due in 3 days. He explained this gently, hoping Mark would understand. There was silence on the other end, then anger. Mark accused him of changing, of becoming selfish, of forgetting their friendship. The words cut deep. Filled with guilt, Daniel gave the money. 3 days later, Daniel stood in his landlord's office, embarrassed and ashamed, asking for more time. The landlord refused. That night, Daniel slept on the floor of his room, staring at the ceiling, feeling a heavy emptiness. He waited for a message from Mark, a thank you, or at least a promise to return the money. Nothing came. Weeks passed. More people came with problems, and Daniel kept helping, but now the joy was gone. Helping felt like a duty, a weight he carried alone. When he tried to talk about his own struggles, people listened for a moment and then changed the subject back to themselves. He realized that many of them didn't see him as a person anymore, only as a solution. One rainy afternoon, Daniel collapsed on a bench outside his office. Exhaustion washed over him, not just physical, but emotional. An elderly woman sat beside him. She had seen him many times, always rushing, always carrying something for someone else. She asked him why he looked so broken. At first, he smiled and said he was fine, but something in her eyes made him stop pretending. Words poured out. He told her everything. She listened quietly and then said something that stayed with him forever. Kindness is beautiful, she said, but when you give your whole heart to everyone, you leave nothing for yourself. And an empty heart cannot truly help anyone. That night, Daniel thought deeply for the first time. He realized that helping others had become his identity. Without it, he didn't know who he was. He also realized that many people took his kindness without gratitude, without responsibility, and without love. The next day, when the first request came, Daniel paused. His heart raced, and guilt knocked loudly inside him, but he said no. Just one word. The person reacted with surprise, then anger, then silence. Daniel felt pain, but also something new, relief. Saying no did not make his life easier overnight. Some people disappeared. Some spoke badly about him. Some called him selfish. Each word hurt, but with every boundary he set, he felt a small part of himself returning. He started saving money again. He slept better. He laughed genuinely for the first time in years. Daniel did not stop helping others. He learned to help wisely. He helped when he could without destroying himself. He helped those who showed respect and responsibility. And most importantly, he learned to help himself. He understood then the shocking truth: helping others without limits can cost you your peace, your future, and your self-worth. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. And the greatest lesson he learned was simple but powerful: your life matters too. From that day on, Daniel helped with open eyes, not a blind heart. And for the first time, his kindness felt like strength, not a burden. The day Daniel decided to change, he felt like a stranger in his own life. For years, he had measured his worth by how much he gave to others. Now, as he stood in his small room with bare walls and unpaid bills, he realized how empty that measure had left him. The people he once helped were absent, and the silence around him was louder than any noise. At first, Daniel tried to live quietly. He focused on work, saved money, and kept his circle small. But life tested him again, as it always does. One afternoon, he met Sarah, a woman he had once helped many times. She looked tired and anxious. She told him she was in trouble again and needed his support. The old feeling returned, that familiar pull of guilt and responsibility. His heart wanted to say yes, but his mind remembered the nights he cried alone. Daniel took a deep breath and asked questions instead of offering help immediately. It was something new for him. He asked how she planned to solve her problem, what steps she had already taken, and how she would avoid the same situation in the future. Sarah seemed uncomfortable. She said she just needed help, not advice. When Daniel calmly explained that he could not solve her life for her, her expression changed. She accused him of becoming cold and heartless. She walked away without looking back. That moment hurt deeply, but it also taught Daniel something important. People who only value you for what you give will leave when you stop giving. That truth was painful, but it was also freeing. For the first time, Daniel chose honesty over approval. As months passed, Daniel slowly rebuilt himself. He paid his debts, found a better job, and returned to an old dream of studying further. The journey was not easy. Sometimes loneliness crept in, and he missed the feeling of being needed. But he reminded himself that being needed is not the same as being loved. One evening, Daniel received a call from his younger brother, Ethan. Their relationship had always been distant, mostly because Daniel was too busy fixing other people's lives to notice his own family. Ethan sounded broken. He had lost his job and felt like a failure. This time, Daniel listened carefully. He didn't rush to give money or solutions. He listened with presence and patience. He shared his own struggles honestly, without pretending to be strong. Instead of handing Ethan an easy escape, Daniel helped him create a plan. He helped him update his resume, prepare for interviews, and rebuild confidence. It took time and effort, but Ethan slowly stood on his own feet. The gratitude in his eyes was different from what Daniel was used to. It wasn't dependence. It was respect. Through this experience, Daniel understood another powerful lesson: real help empowers, it doesn't rescue. When you constantly rescue people, you steal their chance to grow. When you support them while holding them accountable, you give them dignity. Daniel also learned to forgive himself. For a long time, he blamed himself for being too kind. But kindness was never the problem. The problem was giving without wisdom. He stopped seeing his past as a mistake and started seeing it as a teacher. One day, Daniel was invited to speak at a small community gathering about life lessons. He hesitated, unsure if his story mattered. But when he spoke, people listened closely. He talked about sacrifice, burnout, and boundaries. He talked about how saying no can be an act of self-respect, not selfishness. Some people nodded with tears in their eyes. Others looked thoughtful, as if something inside them had awakened. After the talk, a young woman approached him. She said she always felt guilty for choosing herself and believed she was a bad person because of it. Daniel smiled gently and told her something he had learned the hard way: you cannot pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself is not betrayal. It is survival. Life did not suddenly become perfect for Daniel. Challenges still came. People still misunderstood him. But now, he had clarity. He knew his limits. He knew his value. And he knew that true kindness includes kindness toward oneself. Years later, Daniel looked back at his journey with calm eyes. He no longer felt anger toward those who used him. He understood that they were also lost in their own way. But he also understood that it was never his job to save everyone. The shocking cost of a good heart, he realized, is not in helping others, it is in forgetting yourself. When you give without boundaries, you lose your identity. When you help with wisdom, you build a life where both you and others can grow. Daniel continued to help, but now his help was intentional, balanced, and rooted in self-respect. His heart was still kind, but it was no longer unprotected. And in that balance, he finally found peace.